I used to believe my parents were fair people, until the day I realized they built their entire legacy on a lie that almost destroyed me. My name is Ethan. I grew up in a small rural town where family meant everything, or at least that's what I thought. My parents owned a big piece of land, around 30 acres, passed down from my grandfather. It was the kind of place you'd think would stay in the family forever. As the eldest son, I always believed I'd share that land equally with my younger brother Ryan. But I was wrong. Ryan was the golden child. You know the type, the one who could never do wrong. He was the football star, the charming one, the one everyone loved. And me? I was the quiet, hard-working one. The one who fixed the fence when it broke, mowed the fields, and helped my dad manage the crops. But no matter what I did, I was invisible. Still, I told myself, it's okay. One day, they'll see my worth. That day never came. It started small. My dad began introducing Ryan as the future owner of our family land whenever neighbors visited. At first, I laughed it off. He's just joking, I told myself, but he wasn't. At dinner, my mom said it openly. Ryan deserves it, Ethan. He's responsible. He knows how to take care of this place. Responsible? He was barely home. He spent most nights out drinking with friends while I handled everything. Still, I swallowed my pride and stayed silent. You don't argue with parents over things that might happen someday. Or so I thought. A few months later, my father called for a family meeting. It was just me, Ryan, and them sitting around the old oak dining table. He said it like it was a business announcement. Your mother and I have decided. The land will go to Ryan. I stared at him, waiting for a laugh. But his face was cold, serious. I asked, all of it? My mother nodded. Yes. You have your job in the city, Ethan. You don't need the land. That sentence broke me more than anything. I didn't have a fancy job. I worked construction. Long hours, low pay, but they made it sound like I had everything, while Ryan, who never worked a day, was the one who deserved it all. I tried to reason with them, but my dad's voice cut through me like a knife. Don't make this ugly, son. It's already decided. And that was it. Just like that, everything I grew up loving, the house, the fields, the trees, was gone. They didn't just choose him. They erased me. For months, I couldn't even drive past that house. Every time I did, I'd see Ryan standing on the porch, acting like he built it all. Friends told me to move on, to start fresh. But how do you move on when the people who were supposed to love you the most treated you like a mistake? Still, I tried. I focused on my job. I rented a small apartment near the city and told myself I'd make my own path. But then, fate decided I wasn't done with that land yet. It happened 2 years later. One morning, I got a call from an old neighbor, Mr. Thomas. He was like an uncle to me growing up. He said, Ethan, I need to talk to you about your grandfather's property. Something isn't right. At first, I thought he was just being kind, trying to comfort me. But then he said something that froze me. He said, your grandfather didn't leave that land to your father. He left it to you. I thought I misheard. To me? That can't be right. They said Dad inherited it directly. Mr. Thomas replied quietly, I was there when your grandfather made the will. I witnessed it. He said it plain and clear. The land goes to his first grandson. That's you, Ethan. I felt my chest tighten. I didn't know whether to cry or scream. Could it be true? Had my parents lied? Not just about favoritism, but about ownership itself. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every memory, every betrayal, every "you don't need it" echoed in my head. If what Mr. Thomas said was true, my family had stolen everything from me. And now I was going to find out the truth. Because if there's one thing I learned that night, it's this. Sometimes the people who betray you the worst are the ones who raised you. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. I hadn't slept much, but I didn't care. I drove straight back to my hometown for the first time in 2 years. Every mile I drove felt heavier, like I was dragging the weight of everything I'd lost behind me. When I reached the old road that led to our house, my hands started shaking. The fences I used to fix, the fields I used to plow, they were all still there, but something felt different. It wasn't home anymore. It was someone else's property now. Ryan's property. I didn't stop there. I went straight to Mr. Thomas's place. He was waiting for me on the porch holding a small metal box. "I knew you'd come," he said softly. Inside the box were a few old papers, some receipts, land documents, and most importantly, a faded copy of my grandfather's handwritten will. My heart pounded as I opened it. The ink was slightly smudged, but I could still read the line that changed everything. "I, George Miller, leave my property and farmland to my first grandson, Ethan Miller." I froze. My name was right there, in my grandfather's handwriting. I wasn't just imagining it. It was real. I looked at Mr. Thomas, barely able to speak. "Then how? How did my dad end up with it?" He sighed, rubbing his hands together. "Your father never told you the truth. After your grandfather passed, he said there was confusion with the documents. He brought in a lawyer, claimed the original will was missing, and registered the land in his name instead." My stomach dropped. So he lied. To all of us. "Not to all," Mr. Thomas said carefully. "Your mother knew. She just didn't want to fight him. And Ryan, well, he was too young back then to understand. But he knows now." I sat there in silence. For the first time, I wasn't just angry, I was heartbroken. All those years of feeling worthless, all those times they made me believe Ryan deserved more. They weren't opinions. They were lies built to cover a theft. I took a deep breath. "Mr. Thomas, can I keep this?" He nodded. "It belongs to you, Ethan. It always did. But be careful. Your father won't take kindly to you bringing this up." On the way back to town, my thoughts were chaos. I didn't know if I should confront them, go to the police, or get a lawyer. But deep down, I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let them steal my legacy quietly. I drove to the county records office that same day. I told them I wanted a copy of the land registration papers from when my father inherited it. The clerk searched for a while, then handed me a folder. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. The transfer document was signed just 2 weeks after my grandfather's funeral. The witness signatures were the same, but one of them was fake. I recognized the name instantly. It was a family friend who died months before the document date. That's when I realized they didn't just lie. They forged it. The betrayal suddenly felt deeper than I could bear. My father had forged a man's name to take the land that wasn't his, and my mother had helped him hide it. I sat in my car, holding those papers, shaking with anger. Years of silence, of trying to be the good son, turned to rage. My parents had destroyed my trust, my future, my place in the family, and they did it smiling to my face. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what my grandfather must have wanted for me. He trusted his son to honor his last wish, and that trust was betrayed. I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I called an attorney, an old classmate of mine named Clara, who now handled property disputes. I told her everything, sent her the copies of both documents, the fake registration and the original will. After a long pause, she said, "Ethan, this is serious. If that will is legitimate, and if the signature on the registration is proven fake, you can claim legal ownership. But it won't be easy. This will turn ugly fast." I closed my eyes and said quietly, "It's already ugly, Clara. I just want the truth." For the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of strength. I wasn't just the quiet, invisible son anymore. I was the rightful heir, the one they tried to erase. I knew this wouldn't be just a legal battle. It would be a war, one that would tear open every hidden secret my family tried to bury. But this time, I was ready. Because revenge wasn't about anger anymore, it was about justice. And I was going to get it no matter how long it took. The next few days were a blur of paperwork, meetings, and sleepless nights. Clara helped me file an official claim to review the land's ownership records. She warned me it could take weeks, maybe even months, for a response. But I didn't care. After years of silence, I was finally fighting back. Then came the moment I'd been both dreading and waiting for. I had to face my parents. It was a Sunday afternoon when I drove back to the house. Ryan's truck was parked out front. The place looked just like before. The white porch, the worn-out swing, the oak tree I'd carved my initials into when I was 10. But it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like enemy territory. When my mom opened the door, she froze. "Ethan," she said softly, as if she'd seen a ghost. I stepped inside. My father was sitting in his chair, reading the newspaper like nothing ever happened. Ryan leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching. I didn't waste time. I placed the faded will on the table. "You want to explain this?" My father's eyes flickered for a second, but he stayed calm. "Where did you get that?" "From someone who actually tells the truth," I shot back. He sighed and folded the paper. "Ethan, that document doesn't mean anything. It was never filed. Your grandfather changed his mind." "Really?" I said, my voice shaking. "Because I checked. The will you filed after his death, it's fake. The signature witness died months before it was signed. You forged everything, Dad." My mother gasped quietly, covering her mouth. Ryan's expression changed. A flash of guilt, then confusion. "Dad, is that true?" he asked. But my father didn't answer. He just stared at me coldly, the same way he used to when I disappointed him as a kid. "You have no idea what you're talking about, Ethan. You were never meant to handle this land. You don't have what it takes." I felt my throat tighten. And lying, stealing, that's what it takes? My mother tried to calm things down, her voice trembling. "Please, both of you, stop. We're a family." "No," I interrupted. "A family doesn't steal from each other. A family doesn't erase one son for another." Ryan finally spoke up, his tone uncertain. "Dad, did you really forge the will?" My father slammed his hand on the table. "Enough! You wouldn't understand. That land was mine to begin with. My father was going senile. I just made sure it stayed in the right hands." I laughed bitterly. "In the right hands? You mean yours? You took it because you couldn't stand the thought of me being worth something." He stood up, his voice raised. "I built this house. I kept this family together. You left. You don't deserve a thing." I stepped closer, my voice cold and steady. "You're wrong. I didn't leave. You pushed me out. But I'm done running." Ryan looked between us, silent. I could see something breaking in him. The realization that everything he'd been given was built on a lie. I picked up the will, folded it carefully, and said, "I've already filed the claim. The court will decide who this land really belongs to. You might have fooled everyone else, Dad, but you won't fool the law." My father's face turned red with anger. "You think this is over? You'll regret doing this." I looked him in the eye. "No, I regret trusting you." Then I walked out, leaving behind the house that used to be my home. My hands were trembling, but I felt lighter than I had in years. The truth was finally out. 2 weeks later, Clara called. "Ethan, the county confirmed your claim. They're reopening the case. The will is authentic. The signature matches your grandfather's records exactly." I didn't say anything at first. My throat closed up, my eyes burned. For the first time in years, I felt like justice might actually happen. But I knew this was only the beginning. My father wasn't going to let go easily. Men like him never do. Clara warned me that he'd probably hire his own lawyer, maybe even try to destroy the evidence. So I made copies. Digital, printed, notarized, everything. I wasn't about to let history repeat itself. Meanwhile, word spread around town. People who once believed my father's version started whispering. Old friends reached out saying they always suspected something was off. Even Ryan texted me one night. "I didn't know. I swear. I thought it was Dad's. I'm sorry." I didn't reply. I didn't hate Ryan, but I couldn't forgive him either. Not yet. As I stood one evening by the edge of the property line, watching the sunset fall across the fields that should have been mine all along, I whispered to myself, "You tried to erase me, but you failed." For years they made me feel like I didn't belong, but the truth had finally come out, and this time they couldn't silence it. The fight for justice had just begun. The court case moved faster than anyone expected. Maybe it was fate. Or maybe it was the truth forcing its way to the surface after being buried for so long. Either way, my father couldn't stop it. When I walked into the courthouse for the first hearing, my palms were sweating, but my heart felt steady. Clara walked beside me, confident and calm. "You ready for this?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "I've been ready for 2 years." Inside, my parents sat across from me. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. My father sat stiffly, jaw clenched, pretending like none of this mattered. Ryan wasn't there that day. He couldn't stand to watch us tear each other apart. The judge read through the documents carefully, flipping between the forged registration and the original will Mr. Thomas had kept safe all these years. When the judge asked my father to speak, he stood up like a proud man defending his honor. "Your Honor," he began, "there's been some misunderstanding. My father did sign a will, yes, but he changed his mind before passing. Ethan wasn't ready to take responsibility, so I took over to protect the family property." The judge leaned forward. "Do you have any legal documentation proving that change of will?" My father hesitated. "No, but—" Clara interrupted. "Your Honor, the witness signatures on the registration transfer are fraudulent. One of the listed witnesses, Mr. Harold Green, passed away 3 months before the signing date. We've provided his death certificate as evidence." The courtroom fell silent. My father's face drained of color. He tried to recover, stammering, "That must be a clerical error." But it was too late. Everyone could see the truth unraveling right in front of them. When it was my turn to speak, I stood slowly, my voice trembling but clear. My grandfather trusted my father to carry out his last wish. Instead, he forged documents, took everything that wasn't his, and told me I didn't deserve it. For years, I lived believing I wasn't good enough, when the truth was that they built everything on a lie. My mother started crying quietly. She couldn't even look up. I continued. "This isn't about money or land anymore. It's about what's right. My grandfather wanted his land to stay in the hands of someone who loved it, someone who worked for it. That's all I ever wanted to do." The judge looked down at the papers, then back up at my father. His voice was firm. "Mr. Miller, given the evidence presented, this court finds that the transfer of property was fraudulent. The original will is hereby reinstated as valid. Ownership of the land will be returned to its rightful heir, Ethan Miller." For a few seconds, I didn't even breathe. I just stood there staring at the judge, trying to process what I'd heard. After all those years of being told I wasn't worthy, someone finally said the words I'd been waiting for. Rightful heir. My father muttered something under his breath, slamming his papers down. "This isn't over," he growled before storming out of the room. My mother stayed seated, tears streaming down her face. She whispered softly as I passed her, "Ethan, I'm sorry. I didn't know how to stop him." I stopped for a moment. I wanted to say something, anything, but my heart was too full of everything at once. Anger, sadness, relief, betrayal, love. I just nodded and walked away. Outside the courthouse, Clara smiled. "You did it." I looked at her, the wind catching the papers in my hand. "No," I said quietly. The truth did. When I drove back to the property later that evening, the sun was setting again, the same golden light that used to fall across the fields when I was a kid. Everything looked the same, yet completely different. The fences I once built with my father, the barn where we used to laugh, It all carried a weight now. Ryan's truck was parked there again. He walked up to me slowly, his hands in his pockets. For the first time in a long while, he looked ashamed. "Ethan," he said softly, "I didn't know he did that. I swear I didn't. If I had, I never would have taken the land." I looked at him, studying his face. There was honesty there, maybe even regret. "I believe you," I said, "but you benefited from it. You lived off something that was never yours." He nodded. "I know, and I'll make it right. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it." For the first time, I didn't feel anger toward him. I just felt tired. "I don't want revenge anymore, Ryan. I just want peace. You can stay on the property if you want. But it's going to be under my name now. No more lies." He nodded again, silently, eyes glassy. That night, as I stood on the porch, my porch, the stars stretched above me like a promise I'd almost forgotten. For years, I thought justice meant watching them lose everything. But now I realized justice was simply reclaiming what was rightfully mine. I could finally breathe again. For the first time in years, the land felt alive, like it had been waiting for me to come home. And as the night wind brushed past my face, I whispered to the air, "I kept my promise, Grandpa. They couldn't steal what you meant for me." But even as I said it, I knew one truth would always remain, that betrayal never disappears completely. It lingers, like a scar. But sometimes that scar is exactly what reminds you how strong you've become. The following weeks were surreal. Everything I had imagined for years, visiting the property, walking through the fields, planning what I wanted to do with the land, was finally mine. But the taste of victory was bittersweet. Every corner of that property held memories of betrayal, reminders that the people I loved most had tried to erase me. I spent hours just walking through the fields, touching the fences I had fixed as a kid, the barn where I had spent countless hours working and dreaming. The air smelled like earth and hay, but now it carried a new weight, one of justice restored, but not of the innocence I had lost. Ryan came by one afternoon. He didn't say much at first. Instead, he started helping me fix some of the older structures, the ones that had begun to fall apart over time. We worked in silence for a while, side by side, the tension slowly melting into something I didn't expect, a tentative truce. Finally, he spoke. "Ethan, I know I've been part of all this by just existing in Dad's shadow. I didn't earn any of it, and I feel like I should have done more to stand up for you." I paused, leaning on the handle of a shovel, looking out across the fields. "You didn't know, Ryan, and even if you had, it wasn't your fault. The fault lies with the ones who were supposed to guide us." He nodded, swallowing hard. I want to make it right. Even if I can't undo the past, I want to help you now." For the first time in years, I didn't feel anger. I felt a cautious hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild something. Not the family we lost, but a new kind of trust. Even my mother reached out later, cautiously. She didn't come to apologize. Not directly. Instead, she asked if she could visit the property to help care for the gardens she had once tended. I hesitated, but I agreed. There was a part of me that wanted to see them try to make amends, even in the smallest ways. But my father never came back. He refused to accept the court's decision and stayed distant, hiding behind pride and anger. And that was fine. Some wounds can't be healed by apologies, only by reclaiming your own power. As the seasons changed, I began restoring the land, making it my own. I planted new crops, repaired old structures, and even started hosting small community gatherings. The property became more than just a symbol of what was stolen from me. It became a symbol of resilience, of proving that betrayal couldn't define my life. One evening, as I stood on the porch watching the sunset, I thought about the lessons I had learned. Life wasn't fair, and people could hurt you in ways you never expected. Sometimes even the people who raised you. But truth, justice, and perseverance had a way of coming to light eventually. I realized something else too. Revenge isn't always about making someone else suffer. Sometimes it's about reclaiming what is yours and showing the world and yourself that nothing can erase your worth. The land stretched out before me, golden in the dying sunlight. The fields, the trees, the barn, all mine. And for the first time in my life, I felt whole again. I whispered into the wind, "You tried to break me, but I'm still standing. You stole years of my life, but not my spirit. This is mine, always." And with that, I finally let go of the bitterness, knowing that what I had gained was far greater than what I had lost: clarity, justice, and the strength to never be silenced again. The land belonged to me, yes, but more importantly, so did my life.